Start recording. All right, three, two, and one. All right, and welcome back to the Reserve Squad Midweek. Joined again with Rex, and it's good to see you after a little break. And man, do we have a little bit to talk about? Because what a game! Well, actually, what a nice two games we were given over the weekend, and you know it feels like the season just ended, in the EPL, and it kicks back up this week. So we're going to talk a little bit
Yeah,
about who we like, maybe for top four, maybe some teams we're looking at, maybe breaking into Europe, and then some teams we're kind of worried about. So happy to get all into that, and I guess we'll get started with I guess I don't want to say the appetizer, maybe the main course in Liverpool and City in the Community Shield. Liverpool do go on to win 3-1, and really the score is a little more lopsided than what was actually shown on the field. But I mean, one thing I kind of put on the script, Rex, that I was kind of getting into is I feel like this is kind of maybe taken over for those Barca and Real Madrid, or the Messi and Ronaldo years, where this has become kind of the main fixture everyone kind of focuses on. Now, this is
yeah,
only this preseason thing. It's some people don't necessarily kind of treat it that favorably. Normally, I'm kind of one of those people, but I kind of do think just the way that both teams kind of ran at it, this seemed kind of real. So
yeah,
I don't know. With all that said, it didn't really. I introduced you, but I didn't really like have bring you in. So yeah, good to see you, man.
yeah. Good to be back. It's been a while, like you said.
Yeah.
But yeah, like your thoughts on the Community Shield being a preseason game. Like I feel the same way, where it's like, yeah, not really much to gauge, but not in this one, I don't think. And also, it's always important to start off the season
Hmm.
technically, like right before the season, lifting some silverware. So everyone got excited, got to lift the Community Shield. It's a good way to start things off. And I mean, the season starts this weekend, and it feels like it just ended. Man, it's crazy. Like some of these players really don't have much time off. It's
Well,
crazy,
yeah.
especially if they're playing like in June, in the Nations League. I mean, they really don't have much time off. But I'm happy they're back though, and I'm really excited to get into this. I'm really excited about the season. We got a lot of new faces. I think it's going to be a high scoring league this year too.
Hmm. Yeah, and one of the more interesting, I guess, aspects going into this is it wasn't just Pep versus Klopp. I don't know about you, but I saw a lot of promos where it was Darwin versus Holland, and it seems we'll
Ooh,
probably get a lot of that. And really, this is kind of the first chance to really see both in action. And both honestly, Darwin got his goal and got his moment. Holland, people made some clips of him. I thought Holland looked pretty good too. So we'll I guess get into that as well. But yeah, we'll start off with really, I guess we'll break down the story of the game going by the first half. I thought Liverpool dominated maybe the first 20 minutes. It seemed City were really struggling to build out of the back and really turn Liverpool over. Um, Whoa, Rex, are you good?
yeah.
Okay.
What happened?
You went like kind of weird on my computer, but maybe it's just me. I don't know.
No, it's probably my internet.
So so yeah, one thing I've kind of noticed is City weren't able to turn Liverpool over like they have in the past. And so it really started off kind of within the first couple of minutes where Diaz was able to get a shot on goal. Robertson was able to get free a couple of times. He had a header that maybe he could have tried to play that across goal, but he tried to go near post and hit it out of bounds. Salah was able to just create chance after chance. Was able to really skate by Cancelo. Salah looked amazing, in
Mhm.
this 20-minute stretch. And really, one thing I kind of noticed was how quickly Liverpool were trying to change the ball from one side to the other, and I feel like they were doing that to both bypass City's press in midfield, but also it seemed like City were trying to kind of cheat a little bit. They were trying to kind of force Liverpool. They were trying to maybe make the field a little smaller, and Liverpool were able to kind of stretch it back out again. And one thing that really hurt City, in my opinion, was they were able to do this because City's two wide players in Mahrez and Grealish weren't tracking back. And so when
Mhm.
Robinson and Trent or Salah were able to go wide and stretch, City City had numbers issues, and we saw that a lot. And frankly, that's what happens on the first goal. So
Yeah.
Trent Alexander-Arnold gets his first goal. He's like the last person to get the shot off. We should say it does deflect off Nathan Ake's head, so it is a little lucky. But the movement leading up to this goal, well, I think some of the best I've seen under Klopp, to be honest. And it is like 30 or so passes that the only time that City even really get a touch on the ball, they kick it out of bounds. I think it goes in for a throw in. But you see a number of these switches in action. And you see just a whole lot of movement that it makes City just discombobulated. So it starts off with Robinson actually making a run into the middle of the penalty area, and that kind of forces Kyle Walker to I guess cut inside or cheat inside a little bit, and that leaves the entire left wing or left side of the field for Luis Diaz, who gets the ball, he collects it from Trent Alexander-Arnold, and there's just absolutely no one near him. So he's able to collect it. He look up. He's able to find Thiago. Thiago then looks up. He's able to switch the ball to Salah, and then because Salah's so good and he's already shown that he can toast Cancelo, Jack Grealish has to go over and help. So Salah draws two men over to him, and that leaves Trent completely open. And so Salah just wills it to Trent, and he's able to get the shot off. And so really, like I said, the first 20 minutes, it really did seem like City were more reacting to what Liverpool were doing than the opposite. So, I don't know, did you kind of
Yeah.
seeing the same things?
Yeah, I would agree too. And for me, it was interesting watching the midfield battle. It's kind of what you said earlier. You kind of have for City, you have De Bruyne, Silva, and Rodri. So it's like two attacking minded midfielders and then one holding. And if De Bruyne and Silva get caught up the pitch, and Grealish and Mars aren't going to come help defend, it's Liverpool's going to overrun them in midfield. It's just Rodri, and I mean, you have to have Bernardo Silva drop with Rodri later to kind
Yes.
of try to correct that problem. And I mean, there's not that much on the bench there besides Calvin Phillips, obviously. After Calvin Phillips, there's not that much to come in there because Fernandinho's gone now too. So I think it's big for Calvin Phillips. It's a big year too.
Mhm.
But after that, they don't really have much in midfield. So it'll be interesting to see how kind of they have Gundogan too, but it'll be interesting to see how Pep kind of rotates those in the midfield and if he changes. He's going to change tactics a lot. Maybe he'll have a double pivot next time. It'll be interesting to see.
And I guess go off that a little bit. There are a lot of reports now that Bernardo Silva might generally be heading to Barca.
Mhm.
And if that
Yeah,
happens, I do think City will have to go get someone. I don't think
yeah,
they'll have enough.
yeah. Because I mean, if you look at their bench in this one, I mean, it's Foden, Alvarez, Gundogan, and Phillips, and that's about it. I mean, Stones,
Mhm.
but they got some young players too. They kind of made some Premier League match squads. Didn't really play much, so maybe Pep's going to use some of those guys. I don't know. He has a better insight on those younger guys because we haven't really seen much of them, but he sees them in training. So maybe he's got them in the back of his mind too. I don't know. We'll see.
Mhm.
But I would expect them to buy maybe one more. I know they were interested in Cucurella, but that looks like Chelsea now. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to see because we still have like a month of the transfer window too. So whenever you have the overlap with Premier League games, there's a tendency to if you lose a couple, oh, we need a panic buy. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't think City would panic buy necessarily, but Pep might be like after the first two matches, he might be like, oh, we definitely need blank, and maybe they'll go out and get that.
Mhm.
But they only have Cancelo as left back too, letting Zinchenko go. I really thought they would bring in Cucurella, but I think Brian wanted like 50 million for him, and City was like, no, we're not paying that much. So
Yeah, that
I don't know. We'll see.
I'm kind of surprised because that does seem to be a player that Pep actually wants, and it makes sense because he's
Hmm.
very good with his feet. So
Yeah,
he's cover for Cancelo. He might even be a better left back than Cancelo because he actually has a left foot.
yeah. He can play
Um,
midfield too, apparently.
Cancelo could maybe play in midfield or play higher up, and you could even play Cucurella almost as like a third center back if you wanted to go to a back three. Um,
Yeah, true.
but Yeah, just kind of getting back to the game. You mentioned a point earlier that I think was really crucial. That one of the problems that City was having was they were trying to pass from the back like they normally do, and because they didn't have someone like Laporte in there, whenever the ball
Mhm.
got to Ake, he kind of freaked out. And so
Yeah.
Liverpool's press was really good at basically getting City to give the ball to Ake, and Ake was either going backwards to Ederson when he didn't want the ball, or going to Diaz when he didn't want the ball. And so what you saw
Mhm.
a lot of that was City were actually just basically just kicking the ball out of bounds or going long and turning it over. And so one of the fixes to that was you started to see Rodri drop a little deeper, and you started to see Bernardo Silva drop a little deeper, and that was just to be able to just collect the ball and actually control it a little bit. And as they did that, City did begin to retake control of the game. And so from maybe 25 minutes into to basically the end of the half, City were maybe the better side, and you saw that in the attempts. You finally started to see Holland get some looks that maybe he could have done better with, to be honest. But at the same time, I don't necessarily want to be a hypocrite and do a double take with what I did with Darren when he was kind of getting the same chances, in those preseason games when he was kind of messing up. Just to get in those spots, even the best strikers in the world have like a conversion rate of like 30%. So, but just to continually, get into those spots when I didn't necessarily even think he was that fit. That to me is what you should be hopeful for if you're a City fan. And so he did get
Yeah.
two chances. One, he tried to like I guess lunge at a ball. He did get it on goal. It forced a save, but it was right to Adrian, so that wasn't that big of an issue. And then there was one where he tried to do like a weird somersault kick with his right foot when he could have maybe tried with his left or tried or maybe he tried it with his left, and that was actually the issue. Maybe he could have tried with his right, or maybe even tried with his head. So that was, but again, he hasn't really had a preseason to be honest. So, people,
Yeah.
I saw a lot of people trying to have some takes. Oh, he's going to be a bust. Oh, this German league stuff. Holland scores. Whether he's playing in the German league, whether he was playing in the Champions League, whether he's playing for Norway, he scores like a goal a game. He'll be fine.
Yeah, I think the only thing that could hold him back from scoring, honestly, is injuries this
Yes.
year. And he's coming off a season where he was kind of, struggling with injuries. But yeah, like just hop on. I think Holland made some good runs too in this one, and you kind of referred to it, but I saw people were trying to make a big deal out of De Bruyne kind of getting frustrated with Holland with some of the runs he's making.
They
But it
just
was like
they haven't
I don't
gotten.
think he was necessarily good. Yeah, they got to get on the same page. He's just
Yep.
talking to him about it,
Hmm.
and he did make some good runs. So like it's a lot of stuff to build on. It was probably like their first time starting together.
Right.
Maybe
Yeah.
they've been off the bench a couple times, maybe. So just more minutes and in a big game against a big team, a big game for a preseason game. It's valuable minutes. I think they'll be fine as long as Holland can stay healthy. I think he can score 20 goals.
I do too. And like we'll get into like what we actually when we actually dive into City after we go through the game. But I'll get to like two things I'm really concerned about. Holland doesn't even make those two things, so
Mhm.
that's a good point. And so we'll start with the second half, which really did start better for City. Just within the first, I want to say maybe even 45 seconds, Mahrez is able to make a run in behind Robertson. It's really the first time that City were able to get a ball over the top that was really threatening, and thankfully Mahrez just doesn't necessarily get the best contact on it. Once again, the shot was directly towards Adrian. Anything, even weak contact, anything to the the opposite side of the corners, I think would have been an issue. Um,
Mhm.
but City was starting to again. It felt like they were starting to control a little bit more of the ball. Um, I want to say before Darwin came in, City basically had the better stats. Everything from possession, passing, to shots. Liverpool only really had two shots, and so what you saw was Klopp kind of make a change. He finally brought on Darwin for Firmino, and I want to say within seconds, Darwin made an impact. He's on the maybe his first touch is there's a ball kicked over the top for him that he runs onto, and he's just a little bit offsides. And his third touch isn't that great. It's a little heavy, and basically he had a chance to maybe even get a shot off before he ran into Ederson. But he nearly drew a PK. but you just saw how direct and how threatening he can be to anyone trying to play a high line on him. And then little after that, he forced uh, I want to say it was might have been Diaz. He forced Diaz into making a turnover. Henderson was able to quickly get onto the ball, feed him in, and Ederson actually does really well to come out and at least make himself big. So Darwin tries to chip it. Maybe he mishits it and it just hits his head. But
Hmm.
within just a few minutes, you saw Darwin quickly being a threat and making Liverpool a little different. So.
Oh yeah, and him coming on, basically in the 59th minute, running up against center back's tired legs is definitely
Oh,
a Liverpool advantage
yeah,
for sure.
I love Klopp bringing him on as like as a sub, and I think you could
And
maybe.
if he starts too, you're always gonna have one really good player to use as like that super sub, whether it be like Diaz or Firmino if Nunez starts. So it's kind of like it's almost like they didn't even lose Mane. Honestly, you still have four really good threats up top always.
Oh, I think yeah, at least in for the attack, I think they're fine.
Yeah,
Because
yeah, attacks. Yeah.
Mane started the season last year playing on the left wing, and
Hmm.
Mane didn't have the pace that he used to have. With Diaz has pace for days. I mean, Diaz
Oh yeah.
has an issue when it comes to keeping his head down when he dribbles, which we'll get into. That actually caused basically that helped City score their goal. Um, but no, instead of Mane on the left, you have Diaz, and in the middle, instead of Mane playing center forward like we saw at the end of last season, you have either Darwin or Jota. And maybe people are sleeping on Jota. Jota, when
Mhm.
healthy, and if he can get games in, he can be a 20 goal a season striker as well.
Yeah, if he was starting up top like for Liverpool, he would and was healthy, playing like a lot of games, he would definitely be up near 20 goals. I would think.
Yeah. So no, I agree. At least far as the attacking line, I think Liverpool have improved, or at least they haven't worsened losing someone like
Right,
Mane.
right. Yeah,
So.
yeah, definitely.
But let's get into how City are able to equalize. It starts with actually Pep making some subs as well. He brought on Alvarez. He took off Kevin De Bruyne, brought on Gundogan, and brought on Phil Foden. And really, something we're going to get into is I didn't think Grealish had a good game at all, and Foden came on and basically changed. I thought changed City completely because Foden was able to make the runs that Grealish wasn't doing. Grealish kept running to the ball to try to get it. Foden kept trying to make some runs in behind, try to see if try to keep Trent honest essentially. And
Mhm.
you know what happened with the City goal is Mahrez was kind of the same way where Mahrez wasn't necessarily either trying to make forward runs or tracking back, and Alvarez was completely different on that in that respect. So what happened for the City goal is there's a ball crossed in, and at first there's a little controversy in this. So first, Matip tries to head the ball, and it hits his hand. And City fans, at least online, were flipping out that that wasn't called as a handball. It maybe could have been had City not called because the play was able to continue and City were basically score on the continuation. So at first, Liverpool have a counterattack with Diaz, and they like miss hit a pass to Salah, but then it happens again where Liverpool, I guess, City are able to restart an attack and it falters out too. But this is all happening all at once. And Liverpool once again get the ball to Diaz. It looks like Diaz has some pretty good space to run upfield. And what happens is he tries to turn and cut, and he runs into Rodri. But most importantly, he runs into Alvarez. Alvarez tracks back and forces that turnover. And City were able to break. And then the ball is kicked upfield. That Alvarez is also able to head to Holland. Holland then gets it to De Bruyne, and that's when the ball comes in to Foden. And you saw De Bruyne finally, being like his old self because someone was making a run for him. That's why he was struggling so much in that first half. Is Mahrez and Grealish just were not making the runs that he wanted, and you just have Holland, and Holland didn't know where De Bruyne wanted the ball,
Yeah, yeah.
and so it was just instantly one play we haven't really talked about yet is Alvarez, and he's going to be a really interesting signing for City too, because he
I think
came
so.
on and he impressed with what he was asked to do.
And people, I mean, casual fans, he might kind of come out of the blue for them when they're watching, but he had a really good year last year. He was just in South America, so no one really follows too closely. But yeah, I think he can be a key player, and obviously Holland is part of the reason why they got rid of Jesus. But I think Alvarez is another big part of that too. Obviously, he's not going to start over Holland
Mhm.
most likely unless there's injuries. But I do think he's going to have a big role to play. And yeah, like we put in the notes how we talked about how they didn't have a number 9 last year, and now it seems like they have 2 pretty good number 9s.
Mhm.
So that's good news for them. It's still losing Sterling. It's going to hurt Zinchenko if they can't find another left back. But
Definitely.
Holland and Alvarez and Phillips have been 3 really good signings for them this year.
And so, City are able to equalize. At this point, I was quite concerned, to be honest. And frankly, the whole game changes really on one misplaced pass. And this is kind of crazy how much things can flip uh, from like a team winning to to basically a team losing. Is Gundogan the ball is switched to Gundogan, and he sees that Cancelo is completely free on the wing. No one's marking him. Milner is coming at this point for Trent, and Milner is marking Foden. And because Harvey Elliott isn't tracking back and marking Cancelo, Cancelo's completely free, and basically Gundogan mishits the pass, and Milner's able to get it, and he's able to run upfield because there's again Cancelo is trying to play in the attack, so Cancelo's out of the play. So he's able to run upfield. He does well to that. He fires a pass into Darwin Nunes. Darwin does very good at this point to control the pass, to face up against the defender, be strong. So he showed good hold up play, and then he was able to pick out the right pass and with the right power to Salah. Salah's able to control it, and frankly, he really does fool Nathan Ake because he first gets the ball on his left and then cuts back onto his weaker right foot, and Salah puts in an inch perfect cross to Darwin Nunes that he heads the ball, and frankly, I thought the head wasn't the best header. I think that's going out of bounds, but he gets lucky that it hits Diaz's hand. But just in this little passage of play, one, you saw how close City were to maybe even taking the lead, or at least creating a chance where this Liverpool attack doesn't even happen. But two, I really liked the way that Nunes was able to control the ball. Like I said, he was able to look up. He didn't take forever on it, and I really liked Salah showing confidence with his right foot because if
Oh
that
yeah.
can happen, and Salah is able to do basically what he did last fall. He is enough of a threat with his right foot to make defenders honest. That unlocks a new version of Salah, in my opinion.
Yeah, because usually, he's kind of inverted winger, and if you're up against him, you're thinking, oh, he's going to cut in on his left.
Yes.
But now, if you have to watch out for him taking it down the line, crossing with his right, it'll also, open up the middle even more. And I mean, it's just being dominant with 2 feet would totally change the game for Salah, which is, I mean, he's already amazing with his left. If he has a fraction of the talent with his right, I mean, his numbers are going to be insane, right? It would be exciting times, I think, Ben, for
I mean,
Salah and Liverpool.
the two goals that people probably remember most of last season basically happened in the same week. So you had the City goal, where
Mhm.
he had Bernardo Silva just completely on skates because he was able to roll it from his left to his right, where people just weren't expecting it. And then the next week, he played Watford, and basically Salah tries to fake a shot with his right, and because he scored with his right the week before, it actually drove the defender to the ground, and Salah was able to get it onto his left and then scored. But that's
Mhm.
kind of what I was talking. If defenders think Salah's going to shoot with his right, and he almost scored with his right foot versus Real Madrid in the dying minutes, just Courtois had a really good hand to it, but
Oh yeah, yeah, ridiculous save.
and so Liverpool able to go ahead with the Salah PK. And one thing we should say is another way how this game was really closer than maybe the scoreline suggests, is City do basically equalize. The ball is Phil Foden looks like he keeps the ball from going out of bounds. He doesn't. The ref actually calls the flag, but this all happens all at the same time, so defenders don't necessarily know it. The ball gets to Holland and he puts it in the net.
Hmm.
And so, this was in like the 90th minute or so. That would have made it 2-2. Um, and so, at the end of at the end of the day, that doesn't count. This is once again, it's a game of inches essentially. Had that kept in, this is different, and this does go to PKs probably. But it doesn't, and the Liverpool are able to get the all important third goal. with new boy Darwin Nunez, and frankly, once again, it comes from Salah being the creator. And he
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily do it on his right, but he set up basically 2 goals. And he was the assist leader last year. That's maybe another thing people maybe discount or don't appreciate Salah enough for, is he's become a really good creator. But he gets the
Mm.
ball to Robertson. Robertson made this run all game long, and he kept like messing up. But this time he actually did get the header right. He heads the ball to Darwin, and Darwin's able to dive in and heading in. And that's really why you get someone like a number 9, someone that has the instinct to attack a ball, to a 50-50 ball. Maybe you're in harm's way, but you don't care. And
Mhm.
so you saw what it meant to him. He did the shirt off celebration. He copied copied England's Chloe Kelly. So
Oh yeah. Mm.
that's really the it's really the game. I mean, well, I feel like we should talk a little bit about Liverpool. We've gone in the city a little bit, but it this is kind of unique how Klopp is starting to actually win some of these trophies. Now, again, preseason, it's a charity shield essentially, but it is
Mm.
over City. He's now gotten 2 over City, in a row, going back to the FA semifinal. And one thing that's kind of cool about this is he's basically won three tournaments or 3 trophies with 3 different keepers, all in the last calendar year, which I think is pretty unique.
Yeah. That's right. Good call.
So yeah, I mean, I guess I've kind of talked a little bit about this, so let's get your thoughts, Vex, on pretty much everything.
Ooh, well, I mean, I just for me, I mean, I talked about City maybe needing some more signings, but potentially maybe Liverpool needs some more signings too. Maybe particularly like in the midfield, because I know like Henderson, Milner, getting up there in age. You do have Carvalho, Elliott, Jones, Keita, but I don't know. What do you think? Like, you could use another, like a Wijnaldum type player in there as well, especially Keita is kind of injury prone. Thiago maybe, hopefully not, but a little injury prone. I'm for me as an Arsenal fan, I'm just always thinking about the depth, because it's such a long season, especially with these players playing in a World Cup in the middle of the season. I think unfortunately injuries are going to creep up, and maybe Klopp needs to kind of be proactive and get another signing to shore up the defensive midfield, or any other positions he might think need shoring up. I don't know. What do you think? What is the most important position you think needs just a little bit more depth?
I think you absolutely nailed it spot on. To be honest, in fact, it's just been announced that Oxlade Chamberlain has a pretty bad hamstring injury. They've just sent out Tyler Morton on loan. Um, no, he's some like academy kid, but you're
Mm.
making it you're weakening the squad. There has been a 17-year-old that's looked pretty good in preseason, and his name is Bacic. But again,
Mm.
he's 17, so I don't
Mm.
know how much you can necessarily. And he's more of like a DM, like a CDM, like a guy that would play under Fabinho. Um,
Mm.
the right side is really the weak spot, to be honest. Klopp loves what Henderson is able to do without the ball. He basically he can lead the press at times. He's fantastic at causing turnovers, but basically in the second half, you saw him looking winded. Um, and he is getting older, and frankly, when he does have the ball, he's limited. To be honest, if the pass isn't completely onto him, he'll try to loop something in there. I call it goofball. And
Mm.
it is a shame that they don't have someone that's as technically gifted as Thiago is on the right side. Now, maybe Keita is that player, but like as you mentioned, he can sometimes he's not necessarily reliable, fitness wise either. Frankly, I kind of wish they had gotten the guy that you got in Fabio Vieira. Um,
Mm.
someone that can just make a pass when it's needed. Now, Elliott can maybe be that player. We'll have to
Yeah.
see. But I did not like how Elliott fell asleep on that Cancelo opportunity, like the goal that or the movement that led to the PK. That was almost an issue. And so
Mm.
I think you're spot on to focus on the midfield, because it seems everything else does seem to be pretty good. Now they did have a scare over the basically the day after they played like a preseason friendly, and Kanate actually hurt his knee. and but Klopp has said that nothing is serious. Maybe they got lucky, but it didn't look good on replay. But
Yeah.
yeah, you're right that because like the World Cup like happens in such a weird time, it's going to be a season of attrition. And so if you mentioned City maybe not having the best depth, Liverpool are a couple injuries away. Like if they miss Thiago for a significant stretch, I don't know where they can finish. You can have all this attack in the world if you
Mm,
don't have a midfield that can control a game. It doesn't really mean anything. Um,
yeah.
so that'll be something to really see. One thing I'm kind of expecting is I don't think we're going to see anything close to this 90 plus points that we've seen from Liverpool and City for the last 3 seasons. I think it's going to be significantly lower. And the closer it
Mm,
gets down to 85, maybe even under 85, that does bring in I think Spurs or someone else. So that'll be
yeah,
something
it's a
to
good
see.
point. Yeah, it might be maybe not a two horse race, maybe a three or even a four horse race. I mean, which would be very exciting. But I don't know. I don't know. I still feel like in the top four, it's always one A and one B, Liverpool and City in whichever order,
Hmm.
and they're just class above Arsenal, Chelsea, United, Spurs. But yeah, maybe I mean that gap is going to shrink because those clubs are going to be like, hey, we want to be in the conversation for a title too. We don't want to be, the third team in a two horse race. No one's going to talk about. So I think you'll definitely see the gap close. And some of those teams on the outside of the top two looking in have really strengthened their squad. And if things go well, yeah, it could be a three or four horse race, which would be awesome. I would love that. Maybe not, maybe not for you as a Liverpool fan if things are getting tighter. But I think Liverpool still. I think this year they'll be them and City will be head and shoulders above the rest. I think, but shrinking the gap.
Hmm. I mean, the thing that I kind of see when I try to watch other teams play. Now, again, it's only been preseason, so you can't judge too harshly. Um,
Yeah,
But
true.
just when Liverpool center backs, whether it's Van Dijk, Matip, Konate, even Gomez, and then the two fullbacks are absolute class as well.
Mhm.
When they have the ball, they don't make mistakes. Whether it's
Yeah,
whether it's controlling a pass to them, whether it's making a defender miss when they do kind of dribble up, when they pick out a pass, they don't turn it over. And
Mhm.
City are basically the same way. Ake, I guess, we'll sub him out. Ake's not necessarily just the worst player. Just he struggled versus Liverpool's press that day. But I
yeah,
mean, Diaz, Laporte, Stones are kind of the same way. And then obviously Cancelo and Walker. But you don't necessarily see that when you look at United. Um, Spurs can kind of be hit and miss with that as well, though it does seem Conte has made players like Eric Dyer much better on the ball.
yeah.
That guy Romero is pretty good on the ball as well.
Mhm.
But it seems that's maybe something that fans like miss. Like you need to be all around everywhere, um, not just top midfielders and a goal scorer, but you need to have center backs that are comfortable with the ball at their feet. And it just seems some players aren't necessarily there, or some teams aren't necessarily there. So
Yeah, you need to be play out of the back under the press now as a center back. It's not just
and keeper as well.
defending.
We
Yeah,
we
and
can
keeper
we
too.
can say
Yeah,
keeper as well. Yeah.
yep, definitely. And now if you make a mistake and you're a center back or a goalkeeper, it's like an automatic chance on goal. So yeah, it's fun to watch if it's not your team because it's dangerous. But I'm always nervous when my goalie is trying to pass out of the back under pressure just because of a mistake and it's a goal possibly. So,
I mean,
but it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch as a neutral at least.
everyone always praises Allison, and maybe it's unfair, but it's hard for me to get out of my head that game he played versus City. Basically, Klopp took Thiago off in like the second half, like the 60th minute mark, and Allison basically gave City 3 goals in that game in that second
Oh
half.
yeah, yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
And it's just it can be like a lot of teams do give up goals that way because it's not necessarily
yeah.
easy to do. I mean, that's one of the reasons why Ederson's so good. And Ederson basically Manuel Neuer would be another. They're so good with the ball at their feet. City at times when you're
Mhm.
trying to press them, they outnumber you no matter what. They have an extra player on the outfield essentially.
Mhm.
Um,
He's so calm on the ball too. Yeah.
yeah. And so, one player I do want to mention is I'm very excited to see what Fabio Cavallo offers Liverpool. Anytime he's played,
Mhm.
he's looked very, very bright. Um, Now he's only come on to basically kind of be like Luis Diaz's like replacement on the left side. I'd like to maybe see him tried in midfield a little bit more. But he
Right.
is
Yeah.
he is so small of stature. He's listed at like 5'7". I don't necessarily know if I buy that. And he's probably like a buck 45 maybe.
Yeah, he's small.
Because people were thinking, oh, maybe this guy will come in and be like the false nine and replace Firmino, and I don't think I don't think he's got the build for that. But
Yeah.
he's quick. He's anytime the ball is played to him, he's got a feather touch, and
Mhm.
I'm gonna be excited to see what he has to offer too. And so
Yeah, yeah, I think so.
talked a little bit about Liverpool. We'll get a little into City because I think you're right when you brought up missing Sterling and Gabriel Jesus. Now it's benefited you to pick up Jesus. We've seen what he's done in the preseason.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, it's not just necessarily the goals. It's just the off the ball stuff. The pressing, the running back and tracking back. At least in this Community Shield game, Mahrez, Holland, and Grealish did not do what City have done in the past, where they move as a unit.
Mm.
Holland was trying, but at the same, he almost looked like he was by himself at times. And again, it's going to take a time. It's going to take some time for Holland to learn how to press because
Yeah.
if you go as yourself, you become Man United with Bruno, and that actually opens you up.
Yeah,
Um,
it's no good unless the whole team is doing it
yeah,
together.
and another issue was we kind of mentioned how Liverpool were able to switch the field, and frankly, a theme in that entire game was Andy Robertson just kept getting the ball free and was able to just run all the way down the left wing without any kind of resistance.
Mhm.
And so again, that kind of goes back to Mahrez or whoever Alvarez like kind of helped out a little bit in that second half, but that just helped out where it requires a whole team to move as one, because if you
Mhm.
don't, you exploit gaps that way, especially
Oh
when
yeah.
you have fullbacks that like to go up the way Liverpool do. Um,
Mhm. Mhm.
we mentioned them missing Laporte. I think he's going to be out for a fair bit, maybe the first two
Yeah.
weeks, 2 months.
Mhm.
So we'll see what
Ooh.
Stones does. And teams don't not everyone plays like Liverpool does. So Aki will probably be fine.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he's not going up against that front three or four every week. So yeah, I think he'll be okay. I also heard he might be playing some left back when Laporte does come back.
I
If
could see
if
that.
City doesn't get another left back, yeah, because he
Yeah,
did that some last year too.
yeah, and he
So
had.
yeah, it'll be interesting for Ake in that defense. But with Laporte there, I think they're pretty solid.
I mean, the only issue I guess with that would be mostly a purely defensive move. I don't imagine he would
Yeah.
offer a whole lot of like overlapping or
Mhm.
yeah, a whole
Yeah,
lot of
definitely.
stuff in the attack. But it does seem that City do have maybe some holes. That someone like apparently you kind of mentioned them. Chelsea are now the favorites to get Cucurella. So
Mhm.
I would be surprised by that. Now I did see this morning there may be linked to Anderlecht's Sergio Gomez, but I do not know a thing about him, so
No,
I
same
can't
here.
I can't say anything about that. But one thing I do want to talk about with Holland is personally didn't necessarily think he even looked that fit, and
Mhm.
he could have had a hat trick had things gone differently. He's not going to go against Van
Yeah.
Dijk every week. So I think people that are trying to rag on him a little bit, I get how it's fun to do that, but I think I think it's going to be short lived. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, he just needs some time. That's all. And yeah, I think it's just people trying to make a big deal out of nothing. It's like it's their first game. It's his first game starting. So yeah,
Mhm.
he's going to be a little rusty. And he missed some games last year too. So he's not in peak form or fitness yet. So this is just like the beginning. And he still made some bright runs and just missed some shots, but getting in the right areas like you said. So
Yep. And
yeah, that might come back to bite people that are jabbing at him right now.
one of the problems with I guess like these like shortened videos, you call them like comp videos, is over. You can probably do this with De Bruyne with some like bad touches during a game. So there were a couple
Oh
times
yeah,
where Holland did kind of like have a heavy touch, and it led to a turnover or it led to like them blowing a chance. But again, he's going to get into so many good areas, it's not going to matter.
hmm.
He'll have even if he like misses like 7 chances, he's going to get probably 10 looks a game,
Yeah.
essentially. So all he has to do is convert just two of them. So
Hmm.
And one we mentioned kind of Foden. Foden, I think, is maybe their secret. To be honest, he made City look so much better than Grealish. So
Hmm. Yeah, he's good.
all right, and so I guess we kind of talked a little bit about it, but I don't know. Liverpool were involved, and that's probably my fault. But what do you want to do now, Rex? Do you want to talk a little bit about the Bayern Leipzig game, or just go to the women's final?
Let's go to the women's final. I've been chopping at the bit to get into that.
All right, and so this ends 2-1 to England. England finally get to sing their "It's Coming Home" song, which I think they even played on the radio. Basically seconds after the whistle was blown. And it's kind of unique that it happens at the same ground that the men were at last year. They weren't able to do it, and the women were. And so it gets
Mhm.
started with uh, a frantic second half. To be honest, 'cause the first half was, I guess, both teams kind of feeling each other out. Um, their main striker, I guess, Ellen White, had a couple like headers, but didn't necessarily look that threatening.
Yeah.
But the England coach brought on a couple subs, and basically both subs are really the heroes. So it starts with Ella Toone. It's a beautiful ball by I guess midfielder Kira Walsh. It's like I want to say De Bruyne-esque, but it's like one of those balls he
Oh, it
would
was
he would
amazing.
play. It's just a
Hmm.
perfect through ball that splits the center backs, and it's got just the right amount of like pace where Toone's able to run on without breaking her stride, and it's not enough where the goalie's able to come out and basically block it. And so it puts the
Hmm.
goalie in an absolutely impossible place. Tries to come out at the very end, and Toone does a brilliant flick
Oh
over it.
yeah,
Just a beautiful goal. And
it was
then
amazing.
Germany really really woke up after this. It seemed England kind of maybe got into a little of a shell mode. They kind of started kicking the ball around a little bit. They weren't necessarily passing it to feet, and England finally were able to kind of get a counter going. And this goal really was amazing. And I actually replayed the highlights at least on ESPN before doing the show. And one thing I was kind of upset about is it didn't show the whole movement for the goal. It just showed at the cross. But England looked to have a breakaway counterattack going, and the German fullback sprinted all the way back to stop her, and then was able to still have enough energy to basically start the attack all on her own, and caught England kind of out of position. And Germany were able to kind of after a couple passes, were able to get the ball to I guess their right side of the field, England's left, and sent it across that Lina Magul was able to get on the end to, and really
Hmm.
1-1
Good finish there too.
really was. I mean, the goalie's there, but it's fired so hard near post that there's nothing she could do. Um,
Yeah, and then the nice part was the cross was fizzed in so fast
yep.
that Magul just had to redirect it in basically, and she got that elevation on it, and it was an arrow into the upper 90. No chance for Earps to save that, and man, it was just a good finish, good ball, like you said, good movement by the fullback to basically gain possession and basically start the whole thing.
Hmm.
She carried it down the line and set everything up. So yeah, that was a great goal too, and I just these first two goals were amazing.
They
They were
really
great
were.
goals.
Sometimes
I mean, the
finals.
third one was a little sweaty goal, but
Mhm.
still good. But yeah, the first two were I mean, just as good as you'd see if the men were playing. I feel like.
No, like Jeremy's kind of gotten me on his side. He talks how sometimes finals can just be cagey and just not that great. Every now and
Mhm.
again, you see a great goal, but sometimes it can just be maybe it's something off like a set piece, like something that just
Mhm.
kind of lame. Like both of these were fantastic. You're right to
Oh
touch on
yeah.
that. And then so it gets extra time. 1-1 seemed fair on the day for play.
Mhm.
Germany actually had maybe the better stats going in, and it felt like England were maybe kind of I wasn't necessarily on fumes, but I made a joke in the text group that they were starting to kind of hoof the ball a little bit. They were trying for this like miracle long ball because I guess maybe they got the first goal doing that, but it wasn't really coming off, and they were losing the possession a lot. And Germany was starting to kind of dictate play a little bit, and then after a few minutes in extra time, Germany kind of stopped all that, and it seemed maybe they were setting up for PKs, and that's something that Ian Dark even said. And so
Mhm.
England are able to get the ball, I guess, close to the touch or byline, and able to force a PK. I mean, force a corner kick, and lo and behold, the ball is kicked in, and Chloe Kelly's the first one to really respond. She's able to body off the defender first, and she lunges at the ball, but she kind of like miss kicks it. But that kind of helps because the miss kick, kind of confuses Germany, and then she's able to, because she knew she miskicked, she was maybe able to react faster than anyone else. She was able to get the second one in, and then everyone saw her celebration, and yeah, it's just like I really would want to say it's credit to the England coach for making those two subs because they were really the two that decided it. I think it's funny how it's both a Manchester United player and a Manchester City player that
Mhm.
do it. And 2 points I want to say, and then I'll throw it to you. Is I remember, I guess it was when they were in the World Cup, or their last World Cup, basically their last tournament, maybe even uh, in the Olympics. The England head coach was Gary Neville's son, Phil Neville, who's become a punchline in the MLS. And you see Serena Wagman. Uh, she was not only just the former Dutch coach, she literally won the tournament the last time that the Euros happened. So England went out and they started getting serious. They got a serious coach, and that's really the result that came of it. They were favorites going into the tournament. I don't necessarily know if uh, that's because like it was hosted in England. But they proved it out. And so you mentioned how the Golden Boot winner was also an English player, and so yeah, I think it was really cool to see. I think it was really cool to see also it being played in a full Wembley Stadium and how it set records,
Mhm.
both the men and women's
Yep.
Euros finals. Um,
Yeah, that was a cool stat too.
so that's pretty unique. And one thing I want to say is, I mentioned how Manchester United and City player are able to do this. In the last couple of years, it seems the big clubs in England, at least like the main clubs you would associate with, have started to actually take women's football seriously. And so one stat that I noticed, I guess a couple of weeks ago, is now that Liverpool's women have won promotion to get into the quote unquote Super League. It'll be the first time since its inception that you have the two Manchester clubs, the big clubs in London, so Spurs, Chelsea, Arsenal, and Liverpool. So I don't necessarily think it's a coincidence that that's maybe helped translate success at the international level. I know a bunch of American players have started to go to England to
Mhm.
play.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, just great stuff all around. So
Yeah, and the women's Super League is on TV. At least one game a week. It seems like it's on TV here in the states, which helps grow the game as well. And
mhm.
I mean, well, it was just my thoughts. My thoughts on the whole tournament were that it was a great showcase for the women's game. I mean, you had a bunch of good teams, and you can kind of tell which nations just don't care about the women, at least women's football. And like I think Italy was one of those. Like
Mm.
it's a huge football dominant country, and it doesn't seem like they really care about the women's team there. So I'd like to see maybe like that kind of stood out to me. I'd like to see them maybe grow the game a little bit. But other than that, I mean, you got a lot of good teams: Germany, England, Sweden, France, Spain. Even like some teams that we didn't even really know much about, like Austria was a tough out.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, we have like I don't think Denmark's not too bad. Belgium wasn't terrible. So the World Cup coming up for women's too. It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough for the USA. And I know, I don't know if you heard this, but it was announced today that the U.S. women's team is going to Wembley to play England October 7th.
Oh,
So that'll
okay.
be that'll be an interesting, friendly kind of see see how we do. And it could have it could kind of be a barometer of how we're gonna be up against it maybe
Well,
in the World Cup.
I think I'm only going off memory, so I might be wrong here. I think we beat England in the semifinal in the last World Cup, and then we
I
then
think
we
so.
then we ended up beating Holland. But I'm pretty sure England made the semifinals.
Yeah, I think they did. Nikita Paris is pretty good if I recall.
So that's
But
something
but
that's
also
probably on their mind.
Ben, I don't know if you saw this, but it was kind of a really curious decision by the Germany coach Voss Tecklenburg. She took off Hegering, which was like one of their best center backs, and she was having a great game. Took her off in overtime, or close to overtime, And I mean, I don't know what she knows the players better than we do.
Hmm.
Maybe she saw that she was tiring, but I mean, right when they took her off, it seems like England scored the winner. So that was kind of a curious decision for me. And then we have to mention Pop getting hurt
Yes,
in the warm up. I think she had 6 goals as well.
she was
Basically
up there for
lost out in
Golden
the
Boot.
Golden Boot.
Yeah,
Yeah, lost out I think to Beth Mead on assist. But yeah, she pulled up with an injury, so it would have been interesting to see what would happen with her in the whole time. And
and
I
she
believe
scored.
she's the captain
She
too.
scored the 2 goals to get them through the semifinal too versus France.
And I think she's the captain, which that's a double blow really. And then Lena Oberdorf, at least some consolation for Germany. She was the young player of the tournament,
Oh, okay.
and I think a lot of these players are Wolfsburg players. So the German Bundesliga, the Frau Bundesliga, is I think another. I mean, Germany has put resources into the women's team because they've won a lot. But yeah, I mean, the Frau Bundesliga is another fun league to watch because you have Bayern's pretty good and Wolfsburg has
Well, I
a
heard.
ton of good players.
Yeah, it was during. I don't know if it was Dark this, maybe even Julie Foudy. Someone said how one of the players was going to leave from Bayern to Wolfsburg, and I was like, it's
Hmm.
usually not what you hear with the men's side.
I
Uh,
think they also said something like eight of the 11 that were starting are going to be Wolfsburg or are Wolfsburg players.
out.
It was something like that. Just a ton of players.
Hmm. Let's
Oh, and
see.
I guess shout out to Earps too for winning Golden Glove. I thought she was definitely the best keeper of the tournament and a United player. So I mean, did you watch any of the Women's Super League when it was on TV? It was really good. It was fun to watch. I mean, they play in like the training ground stadiums, which sucks. But the gameplay was great every time I watched, and it was a lot of excitement. It's small grounds, so they're packed, but the fans are really loud.
I
If
saw United
uh,
play someone. It might have been Chelsea. When
yeah,
it was one of
yeah,
those.
Chelsea.
It was on like NBC. It was one of those weeks when
Mhm.
it was either an international break or just
International break.
they weren't having. Maybe it was one of those FA weeks.
Yeah,
But yeah.
it's good stuff. And hopefully, getting on TV in the states more and more. I mean, maybe they can make a deal with like ESPN too, or
Well, that
something like that.
I think
Get all the games
I
on.
think they have one. I think this
Oh,
coming season
cool.
is going to be on Paramount.
Sweet.
I'm not
Yeah, because like
positive,
you
but I think
don't
that's what.
necessarily get to pick and choose which ones you want to watch.
Hmm.
But yeah, if they put it on Paramount, you could, which would be awesome.
Yeah, like NBC would show the occasional one, but I don't think NBC offered it on their Peacock. So I
No, I
think
don't
yeah,
think so. Yeah.
and we've got a few women over there. I think Tobin Heath is a United player. Is that or we have a few
I did
Americans
she
playing over
didn't she
there.
come back? I think she came back. But yeah, we do have a few Americans, and I mean, it's a lot of these stars on England. You have Kirby, White, Mead,
A lot of
Williamson.
Arsenal I
So
saw.
yeah, a lot of Arsenal.
A lot of
Williamson's
Arsenal.
Arsenal, Mead's Arsenal, a lot of City too, and United obviously. So
And
yeah, it's fun to watch.
Chelsea
Good
just
teams.
I want to say maybe it was the year that Barca won the Women's Champions League. Chelsea almost went like undefeated that whole year. Um,
Yeah.
so
Oh yeah, and Barca's another good team. Olympic Lyon is a good team. So the Champions League for women too is good, and
mhm.
I think that had a pretty big. The final had a pretty big crowd and good numbers on the TV. I think too internationally.
So one thing before we ended up, I guess, leaving up here, one thing I did want to say is you kind of brought up how I guess the U.S. women should maybe look at this, and one thing I am kind of concerned about, and I've mentioned this before, is in the past I felt like we almost had like an unfair like built-in advantage,
Mhm.
going back decades because I guess because of Title IX and our college system, we actually offered a way for women to play the game in a way that maybe other countries didn't. And the college system, unlike with the men's side, did help the women out. And we also had a professional league that was like fairly well resourced and run. That started to kind of change a little bit. You're starting to maybe see that flip around where it's you know where we're going from like Marta being the biggest star playing in Charlotte or DC or whatever to people like Mertens playing for Barca or Hedeberg playing for Lyon. And so I do think that the U.S. have to be on their toes to not necessarily fall into this thing where, oh well, we'll always be number one because we're the U.S. That kind of mindset can be tricky. And going into this World Cup, we basically we went in as favorites for the Olympics, and I think we ended up getting bronze. We're going to have a lot of players, or a lot of new faces.
Yeah.
We're going to have a little bit of a change in the guards. So they might be talented as all out, but they haven't. Maybe a few of them coming in, like Trinity Rodman, haven't necessarily been
Yeah.
there yet. So we don't know
Mhm.
how they react there as well. So good stuff.
One quick point too. I'd like to see the NWSL kind of maybe get. I don't know if they do, but I'd like to kind of see them get like a Paramount deal too, where
I
you
think they're
can
on
at
Lifetime
least.
right now.
Yeah,
So
but it's just that one live game, right? I'd like to be able to like pick and choose what games
yeah, I
I
think you're
want
right.
too,
Hmm.
based on like a streaming. Just get more exposure and just get them on TV more.
All right, and so we can kind of mention like the Super Cup, I guess. It was kind of hard for me to. Well, I did have it on in the background. I mean, the score is insane, 5-3. It seems like Germany has decided to just kind of be like the NBA of of European football.
No
Uh,
defense.
more goals means more excitement. I mean, one thing I'll say is Sadio Mane could have had a hat trick from what I saw.
Mhm.
He scored 3 goals. Two of them were just a couple of inches offsides. So he's going to be a fantastic signing for them. It seems.
Yeah,
And
yeah, I think so.
I think player of the game was youngster Musiala.
Hmm.
So he's probably going to be a name to maybe follow the season, at least for that
Oh
league.
yeah.
So
Hmm. And Delic got in a little bit of time. Had Luca Hernandez playing as a center back.
mhm.
So yeah, I mean, Sane off the bench, Coman off the bench, and they have Gravenberch too. So yeah, I think Bayern's going to be fine. They kind of went with Mane up top as a striker, and the game before that
they
I
went
think
with
was the City game. They
they
went with
went with
Mueller,
Muller,
yeah,
and it did not work out
and
at
it
all.
didn't work. Yeah, it
Yeah,
did not. He's a little too slow.
I don't think he can lead the
He,
line by
he's
himself.
he's good as a number 10. Yeah,
Yes.
he's good as a number 10 and behind people, and that's what he did with Lua. So I think yeah, Mane up top works, and Musiala maybe out wide. You have Sane too, Gnabry, Coman. You got a lot of fast wide players to provide for him.
Hmm.
I mean, it's kind of it's a threatening front three or four too.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, defense. Who knows? They're giving up 3 goals. It's not ideal for them. And then just looking at Leipzig's defense, I don't know anyone besides Orban and Klosterman. But other than that, I mean, they have a fast front two. I mean, Forsberg isn't that fast, but Kuku and Chesbalot pretty good players too. So
Almost pretty good for them. Yeah, as well.
yeah,
And
yeah.
Kuku is really a player that I'm kind of shocked he didn't make a move this summer. He'll probably make a move
PSG or
next summer.
something. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think PSG or something. Because he's French,
'Cause he can
so
play.
I'm
He
surprised like PSG wouldn't shell out
he can
money
play
for him,
false nine. He
honestly.
can
But
lead. He can play on the wings. He's very good.
midfield wing.
He
Hmm.
can make people miss. He did some combination play with Mbappe during the Nations League that made me fall out of my seat. It was
Oh,
just
yeah.
that is a player that again I'm kind of surprised he's still at Leipzig. Still young,
Yeah,
but
it could be his last year though, and then he makes that leap to a bigger club, bigger payday for sure. Because well, we've been talking about him for a while, at least 2 or 3 years, and he's still young.
mhm.
So yeah, this might be his last season there. I don't know. He's gonna earn Leipzig a lot of money if he does leave at least. So
Oh yeah. Yeah, and one thing you touched on, like their back line. This is like 2 games where I've at least watched Leipzig. They've given up 5 goals. Now,
ugh.
I don't necessarily want to say the Super League or Super Cup is a. I mean, it's basically like maybe their Community Shield. I would
Yeah.
guess. So maybe
Mhm.
preseason in a way. Um, but and it's also preseason versus Liverpool. But I mean, this is the game that Darwin like came on and scored 4 goals within like I want to say 10 minutes of play. So
Yeah.
2 games in a row, you're giving up 5. I'd be a little worried. Like they sent out Marsh for a little less. So Tedesco,
Mm.
you're on watch.
Ugh.
Um, and I guess one thing we should say maybe since we're also talking about the German league is it's very interesting to see what Dortmund have done this offseason. And personally, I would like to see them maybe lose a player after all these additions in Jude Bellingham, but it doesn't seem that's going to happen. But Dortmund maybe more this year than in recent past, or maybe set up well to challenge Bayern because they've addressed their issues at the back. They've added Schlotterbeck, they've added Schula to their back line. Um, it's now they did lose Holland, obviously, and the guy they were going to place him with, Stephen Haller, has come down with. I think they have. I think he discovered a tumor. So maybe they've found it in time, but that's something that's obviously going to take quite some time. So we'll see how they do with that. But I mean, they still have a number of. I mean, still have Marco Royce, and
Mm,
they have
Malin.
they have that Holland winger that they bought like a season ago, that Myland, I think,
Yeah, Malin. Yeah, he's good.
who I think could, you know, first season it happens. Second season, if you're gonna be the player that people buy, that's when you show up. So I expect him to maybe start a little bit. So I'm expecting maybe a bounce back for Dortmund, which is wild even after losing Holland. So we'll see about that.
Mhm. Yeah, they made some good signings, and it was early in the window too, so good
Mhm.
time for them to gel together.
And so I don't know how long we're going. Yeah, we're not too bad. Let's do our top four predictions for the EPL, because the
Yeah.
season the season starts this Friday.
Yep.
All right.
Crazy.
So personally, I do fear that City are going to once again win, and basically I get this guess this will be five in a row, and this will officially turn the EPL into into the Bundesliga, as everyone likes to say, with Bayern winning all the time. Um, Liverpool obviously have a claim maybe here, but I just basically it comes down to whether Thiago can stay fit the whole season. In my opinion, I don't think they have enough in midfield that we've kind of talked about. So maybe I'd like Liverpool to maybe be the Champions League favorites. So I've got Liverpool, City. I'm going to go with Arsenal for my third. This is probably, taking a wild card here. It's not just how they've done in preseason, though they have looked really good. In fact, some of these games, Saka hasn't necessarily been flying for them, which is amazing when you think about like how or Smith Rowe,
Yeah, Smith Rowe's been out the whole preseason basically.
like Arsenal have so many options now. Everyone seems technical. Everyone seems really good with their feet. Now there is an issue with Partey, not just health wise. You know, he had something come out about him, and they don't really have anyone to replace him. So we'll maybe see if they try to go out and get another midfielder. I know they've been linked to Tielemans, but I like I like the kind of business that they've done, and I look at the back. They just I mean Zinchenko is going to be Zinchenko and Tierney are both quite good on the left side, and just it seems Ben White's good with his feet. Arsenal are
Mhm.
maybe the team that are closest when it comes to having defenders that are good with the ball at their feet. So they're going to be harder to press, in my opinion. But we'll have to see if
Mhm.
that pans out. And then
Saliba's been calm on the ball too back there.
I'll go with Spurs. I'll go with Conte, which means I'm
Ooh.
leaving a certain blue team out. But Spurs have done some pretty good business as well. It seems they finally have a striker depth for Kane with Richarlison, um, or striker depth for like Kulishevsky, which also can play on the wing as well. I really like their signing with Basuma. Basuma is he's going to offer their midfield a little something different than maybe we've seen with Hoiberg and Betancourt. I think Spurs are going to maybe win the ball up a little bit more, and we'll see if that works. So I don't know, Rex. What do you got?
All right. Well, I'm going to Liverpool first, mainly because I mean, I just I wonder. I don't know because Pep probably won't let it happen. But I wonder if going to be a little bit of complacency, maybe with City in the Premier League. Maybe they're like, hey, we got this. We've won a bunch of Premier League titles in
Well,
the past
if they lose Bernardo
recently.
Silva, then
If they, yeah. They might just be like, let's go for Champions League. I don't because that's something they've wanted to win and they haven't been able to even really get to the finals. So
oh,
I don't know, maybe
that's a
just a
good
little bit of
shout.
complacency, depth issues. But mainly, I want someone else to win it. Let's get Liverpool again. And then City second. I think those two are just a little bit above everyone else. Like I said earlier, it's 1A and 1B. So Liverpool, just too much firepower, and then City depth issues. So yeah, Liverpool first. City right behind him second, and then I'm going Arsenal third. I'm still worried about like potential injuries, things like that. They need like a winger potentially too, because I don't know if Pepe or Reece Nelson are going to cut it. Defensively they can go a back three with Sinchenko and Saka as fullbacks, or even Cedric. Tierney hasn't played since he got injured. Really, he played a little bit in one preseason game, and he was back on the training table. Tomiyasu also is hurt, so maybe you have Ben White could play right back if needed. They do have Cedric, like I said, but just the ability to play. You can play the three center backs with Gabriel, Saliba, and White is pretty exciting. You do a full 4-2. Your strikers could be Nketiah and Jesus. But I'm just worried, like if Jesus gets hurt or Nketiah gets hurt, you don't have a third striker, and no one wants to be third string. No one with any talent at least wants to be third string behind those two guys and not play. They did have Balogun, but I think he's gone to Rams now. So like I said earlier, I just always worry about injury. But I think they've made some good changes this year, and they can kind of play, like Pep does. Arteta has the ability to change formations depending on who they're playing. So I think that gives them the edge. And then I'm going to go Chelsea 4. I don't know. I feel like they'll just find a way. It's Chelsea, but they haven't really done much in terms of like incoming signings this year. Cucurella maybe would be a big one. Gallagher coming back too, but they haven't really clicked this preseason yet. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I think they're kind of missing a striker too. I know Lukaku just wasn't saying the right things and wasn't doing the right things to the club, but they could use a big striker like him. I think that would really solidify their top four for me. But I don't know. I think Chelsea's a team. They could finish like sixth, and United or Spurs or something could get that fourth spot. So that's the one I'm kind of like. I don't know Chelsea. I have them in the top four, but they could easily be sixth or seventh even if things don't go their way early, especially.
I'm with you. Like Chelsea are going to be that team that everyone just like has an opinion on, and then maybe after the transfer window, all of these takes are going to age horribly, and maybe they even go on and win the damn thing, because they were not that far off with City and Liverpool's pace last year until Chilwell got injured.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're
Uh,
flying.
and and they've lost. It'll be very interesting to see how they replace Rudiger if they are able to, because Rudiger did so much for them. Rudiger, in my opinion, was a player of the season last year. A lot of people think Thiago Silva was the one manning that defense. I don't think so at all. Um, they've got Koulibaly in. I think they're going to try to make him on that left center back side. They're
Yeah.
missing someone on the right. Right now it's Chalaba. I think like if their season started tomorrow, I think he would, although he's hurt. Um, Maybe it would be Aslaqueta with Reece
Yeah.
James being on the wing.
Mhm.
They with everyone they've been linked to, it doesn't seem that they've been able to replace losing both Rudiger and losing Christensen, which is a bit
Mhm.
surprising to me. They've got this youngster Colwell,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of talks that they wanna ship him out. Now they are linked
Mhm.
to Wesley Fofana of uh,
Yeah.
of Leicester, and this would maybe change some things a little bit. This because I think he could play on that right side. He he is Van Dijk-esque when it comes to winning duels in the air. He's very very skillful. When Fofana, you know, I had Leicester going into last season as a top four team preseason,
Mhm.
and then Fofana got injured and just completely tanked them.
It changed everything on the defense. Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, it would be a ginormous fee. People would probably laugh at it, maybe because he hasn't had many games for Leicester. He started
Yeah.
he started injured. I think with them. So he's only had a few seasons, I guess, in the EPL. But he is
Mhm.
very 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 good. So that
Mhm.
would that would be interesting. But you're right. They're missing a scorer, and I don't. Maybe
Yeah.
Havertz finally breaks out. Sterling's going to be able to create in a way that maybe Ziyech and Werner haven't.
Mhm.
Maybe that'll unlock him. But I think you're right. They're
Yeah.
they're missing goals in
Mhm.
that starting lineup, and so it feels like they tried to go for Rafinha and they missed. They've been trying to go for a lot of players that Barcelona tried to
They
go
have.
for.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, Kunde is another one that
yeah,
they were going for.
Kunde, yeah, that would be that would if they get Fafana, and I think though that's better for them than Kunde, to be honest.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I would agree.
that could maybe be a blessing in disguise. Um, but yeah, again, a lot of people are starting to doubt Chelsea, and the contrarian side of me is almost like thinking double down, even though I am one of those people doubting them at the moment because I have them in fifth.
But they always find a way. I feel like, at least recently. So yeah, fifth is a good call too. I mean,
Just
I think anywhere 4 to 6 or 7, maybe
it's just the
even.
goals, but like when you look at
Yeah.
the passing last year, like the best four passes in the league, I think actually was the top four. Essentially, I think Spurs
Yeah.
beating Arsenal with Conte being back in.
Hmm.
Like at least passes completed per game. Like Chelsea,
Hmm.
Liverpool, City were all over 500. Or averaging maybe like 490, and everyone else was
Damn.
kind of in that four range, or like the three range. Like everyone that got relegated was in like the 200 range.
Yeah.
So I mean, Chelsea really aren't that far off, but they've had such a weird off season. But still time for them to fix it, and
Hmm.
we'll see what they do. Hope, like I said, doing predictions on Chelsea really do worry me because
It's hard.
whatever they do is not gonna it's not gonna be easy for us to predict. So
Hmm.
and then kind of went on a little bit, but who do you have for your fifth and sixth spot?
All right. So well, I kind of. All right. So fifth, I went Tottenham. I mean, they could easily be in the top four, though. They've done some good business this year, but maybe their defense hurts them. I don't know, but I think they could probably challenge for the top four and get in there. But I have Arsenal and Chelsea just pipping them to it. We'll see, but I kind of went with what you kind of went with, except I went six West Ham. I like
Mhm.
a lot of the moves they've made this offseason too, and they have a lot of talent. They kind of have finally someone to take the load off of Antonio up top, which will help too. They got Aguerd, he was a solid defender from Spain, La Liga, so I think he'll help. So yeah, I got West Ham in that sixth spot, and then seventh I got United. I kind of agree with what you read in the notes. It's going to take Ten Hag some time, but I think he is a good coach. You got some unsettled players too. I mean, we don't know about Ronaldo.
Mhm.
I think Ten Hag wants him. I don't know if Ronaldo wants to stay. Maybe he got convinced because it kind of looks like he might be staying now. I don't know, but that's kind of up in the air. And he scored a good amount of goals last year.
Yeah,
Um,
maybe
so I
third or fourth.
think maybe yeah. So I think United will have some times where they struggle, just under a new coach. But I think eventually they're going to kind of start rebuilding a little bit. And I mean, they could possibly challenge for the top four too, depending on how quickly Ten Hag gets everything going the way he wants them to go. But I don't know. I mean, they still need to make some moves. I feel like they've been linked to Frankie De Jong like the whole window,
Yeah.
and I mean now it's maybe looking like that's not going to happen. I mean they got Malacia as a fullback. I mean, other than that, though, they need more signings. They lost a bunch of players too. They lost Matic. Lingard's gone. They probably should have kept Lingard or at least sold him for some money. He went for free.
Hmm.
But I still think they got enough to get seventh. Maybe even break into challenging for the top four. Just depends. I just don't know with a brand new coach. It's always hard to say. It just takes some time to gel too under him. So I don't know. They've looked decent in preseason. So we'll see. They've won. Ten Hag's been smart in preseason because he is kind of going with a experienced lineup and just trying to get that boost early by putting together some good preseason games, which
Hmm.
I think is smart. Get some confidence leading into the season. So we'll see. But yeah, I think that kind of rounds off my top seven.
So just to touch on United, I mean, basically my thoughts are the same. One thing I am thinking about though, if they do find a way to get Frankie De Jong in there, and they can do like a Fred De Jong type thing, or they can maybe De Jong wants to do a back three, or maybe even play De Jong at center back and make him basically a sweeper and basically be a ball controlling sweeper. That'll change significantly how United are able to basically beat a press and build possession from the back. Uh, that might change my thinking a little bit. Also, I'm very interested to see. how Ten Hag plays Christian Eriksen as opposed to Bruno, because
Mhm.
Bruno is a playmaker and he can score fantastic goals, uh, but he loses the ball a lot for someone that's
Yeah.
supposed to be your number 10. And
Mhm.
Ericsson in that position, I think, is a better player. To be honest, Ericsson could also maybe play deeper as well. And no, frankly, in one of the preseason games I watched versus Crystal Palace, Van de Beek played and didn't look too bad. And so
Mhm.
there's going to be like we said, it's going to take some time. And Fred's actually looked pretty good in some of these
Yeah,
preseason
Fred's been
games.
good too. Yeah.
So it's going to be take some time for him to get the lineup right. I think they have Martial back, and Martial has actually been scoring for them a little bit. So
Mhm.
maybe Rashford is able to bounce back to be the player he was before. If not,
Yeah.
Rashford's gonna have an issue. If
He could
he,
be gone.
I think so. Um,
Mhm.
and so maybe Sancho can. No, Sancho will be another one that'll be on second season watch for me because they
Yeah.
paid so much money for him that he needs to
Mhm.
start. He's great when it comes to link up and creating and all that. But when you pay that much for a winger, you need to add goals. So that'll be
Yeah.
something I'll be watching. But as far as that, uh, I'm kind of with you on West Ham. I think West Ham could be another team that actually I feel like a lot of people want to give them this spot, maybe even make them a top four contender because they've been so close. But I'm starting.
Mhm.
I fear maybe getting Leicester vibes, where Leicester was so close to getting in the top four, and then just one injury or one a few bad results, and everything kind of tanked. And I do fear them not getting Lingard, like you said, or not getting another like creative player. And they had brought in this guy Skamaka, who
Mhm.
is he's 6'5". He's very good with his feet. He's faster than he maybe looks. He could be a very good signing, but at the same time, he is moving to a different league, new country. Could take some time, and if maybe an injury to Antonio, things could blow up for West Ham. So that'll be something I'm not gonna put that as my prediction, but that is something I am fearful of, to be honest.
Yeah.
And a team I'm gonna take a long shot on is I think Leeds bounce back, and Leeds maybe gets an eighth or seventh spot. Um,
Ooh.
and this is my USA USA talking. Um, it's not necessarily that I'm this massive believer in Marsh, but I do like the players that they brought in. They've lost Calvin Phillips and they've lost Rafina, and they've replaced them with Brendan Aronson, this guy Senestera, who was setting records everywhere um,
Oh yeah.
in the Dutch league, and then uh, Tyler Adams has looked. I've actually gone online and typed in Tyler Adams just to see how like Leeds fans are reacting to him. They love him. So I think he
He's a
could
good
have
player.
a.
Versatile too.
He's very good at controlling tempo. He doesn't lose the ball. He can maybe be more progressive with his passes at times. But maybe that's something Marsh will teach. Marsh is actually a player that likes being direct. He's not all about possession. And really,
Mhm.
the main reason why is I've seen Bamford now in two preseason games, or at least clips. He looks very good. He looks back to himself. He's able to make these runs in behind. He's able to take defenders on. He's looked very, very good again. And if Bamford can get back to what he was, I guess, 2 seasons ago, that
Yeah.
seriously does make Leeds because he's got goals in him like few strikers have. Like Bamford could be in the top five for goals at the end of the season if he can go the
He
whole way.
was. Yeah. He was 2 years ago, right? Didn't he
Right.
have like close to 20? I
He can
think.
be. He can
So
be a
yeah.
20 goals. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. He could be key. He was a key injury for him last year, and a part of the reason probably why BSL got sacked too
Yes.
halfway or through the season. So
Because they were
yeah, good
playing.
call.
They were playing like Dan James at like center. Like poor Rafina was like trying to take defenders one on one and then like cross ball to Dan James. Like
Hmm.
it
Yeah, like
just
Rafinha's numbers, like considering he didn't have Bamford, were pretty outstanding.
yes.
you
Oh yeah.
know.
And so that's I guess teams we're hopeful for. Let's unfortunately there's the opposite discussion to that effect. And who are some teams we're maybe concerned about? Not
Well,
necessarily teams that you expect for relegation, but just you
just
think will be in a
concerned.
fight. Yeah.
Ooh, well, I'm gonna go Fulham for me and Bournemouth. Just two of the three newly promoted ones.
Mhm.
The promoted teams usually have a tough time. I mean, I think Nottingham Forest have done enough with the additions to their squad where I'm not too concerned about them. I think even if they have some trouble gelling in the beginning, I think they have enough talent to kind of overcome that. And barring any injuries, this should be okay. Even if they don't start too well, I think they'll start to pick up points later.
Hmm.
But I'm also worried about Everton.
Yes.
They got really lucky not to get relegated last year, and they will have Dominic Calvert-Lewin back, which will help. He was kind of, with Leeds and Bamford, it was kind of the same thing with DCL
Hmm.
Everton. But they've lost some players too, which is a concern. They lost Charleston and they relied on him a lot. Uh, but they had picked for two. But I don't know. I'm just worried about them. I'm worried about they got hammered in a preseason game. I think it was Minnesota
Minnesota.
United,
Yeah. Like
like
4-0.
four.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got hammered. So I'm a little worried about. I'm worried about that. I don't think Lampard really. I mean, he did just enough, and I don't really think. I think a full season. I don't know, man. I think they're going to be in trouble. I don't think they might not get relegated, but it might be another fight. Just they haven't done much either in the signings department.
They've gone to
They've been
Burnley,
looking,
and
yeah,
so
and
they
they've
got,
been
yeah, they got in
McNeil's
like
not bad,
Tarkowski, who is
and they
I
Tarkowski's
think a
not
decent
bad.
decent center back. But if it's going to be him and like Michael Keane, leading like
Hmm.
as far as trying to run back and chase someone sprinting on a counter, they don't have legs in either of them.
Yeah, they'd have to have like Godfrey, I think. In
Or maybe
there.
hopefully a lot of it will depend on like Yuri Mina's I guess health. But
Oh yeah, I mean it too.
McNeil could be an
But
interesting signing.
yeah, he could
So
be
they
good.
have
He could
him,
be
but
good.
I'm sitting
Yeah, they
here.
got him.
I'm sitting here
A
looking
Dele
at.
Alli.
I'm sitting here looking at Burnley's roster and how how Tarkowski and McNeil gone before Cornet.
I
Cornet's
know,
a
and Ben Mee's gone too.
yeah. Ben Mee would have actually
But
been a good maybe about like Brentford did well to go get him.
yeah, to get him, and he
Yeah.
was free too. Yeah, I think so. Speaking of Brentford, I'm a little worried about them too.
Hmm.
They lost Ericsson, but they have made some really good signings this year. They got Aaron Hickey, and he was kind of touted by some bigger teams like Arsenal were interested in him. And then they went to Hull City to get Keen Potter. So I think he's going to be solid too. But second season in the Premier League is just notoriously hard for these teams that got relegated or promoted 2 years ago. It's always like a NFL like sophomore quarterback slump kind of situation. So I'm worried about Brentford. I think they'll be
Yeah.
okay. I'm also worried about Wolves. Wolves haven't done anything in the transfer market. It seems like they have Traore back, which will help, I think. But I mean, he had one assist last year, I think, for Wolves until he got loaned out to Barca. So I'm worried about Wolves, and then I'm also worried about Leicester. They're potentially losing. Schmeichel wants to leave. We talked about Fofana. Tielemans might go to Arsenal, and maybe even there's some interest in Madison and Harvey Barnes. So,
Hmm.
and they're another team that hasn't really done much. I don't think they had any incoming signings.
No.
So
Yeah.
they're
They
they're a
they
team
only
that could,
won.
yeah, and like you said, kind of not that great of a season last year under Rodgers, and they're going to lose some of these key players. I mean, especially someone like Schmeichel who won the Premier League with them, and it's just been a very good professional goalkeeper for him. I mean, if they lose half of the players we mentioned, they're going to be in trouble, I think. And leaving business to be done late is never good. But they haven't necessarily cashed in on some of these players yet. So if they do sell someone like Madison, you know, or Fofana, do they have enough time to replace them? Probably not. Or if they do, they're not going to be gelling in time. So
Yeah.
I do think that that's definitely a concern. And you would think Rodgers and Leicester would fight really hard to keep some of those players that want to leave, but you also don't want unsettled players in your squad necessarily. So I'm worried about them too. We'll see. It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be another fun year, I think. Maybe Southampton too, another team that I don't really know. They could be fighting for relegation or they could be, in the mid table. I don't know.
And we don't necessarily know the finances of these clubs. But
That's a good point.
one thing you can try to maybe owners don't necessarily think about. Obviously you think of your bottom lines and your buybacks or whatever, um, or dividends, I guess.
Mhm.
Is by not bringing anyone in, you're not showing ambition, and so players that want to compete, that maybe they don't want to leave, but they see the writing on the wall that no one's
Mhm.
coming in. that creates a negative atmosphere just by itself.
Yeah.
So that's maybe what you're seeing with Madison. And you mentioned, I mean, Tielemans to Arsenal. It seems like is maybe, it's one of those secrets that's out there that it seems like it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. And Fofana, Chelsea, after getting burned by Koundé, I think are going to have to spend big and just bite the bullet and go for Fofana. And if Leicester lose Fofana, I'm very worried about them as well. Maybe not necessarily relegation, but I could see Rodgers being the first manager to be sacked.
Yeah, yeah, me
To be
too.
honest,
Because he had some bad streaks last year, and Vardy's not getting any younger either.
hmm
So
I mean they did make some. They made a lot of signings last year. So Patindaka, who looked good when he played. Still have Iheanacho. They brought in Barbakura Sumare, who
hmm.
can maybe step in. But I maybe they can move Ndidi back to center back at full time, and I don't know because they lost Ndidi for a lot of last season as well, and that was kind of the issue
Hmm.
for them.
Hmm.
He's a very good CDM.
Yeah.
Uh,
Uh,
so yeah, I'm with you on Bournemouth and Fulham. I mean, Bournemouth don't seem to necessarily been doing a whole lot of business. Uh, Fulham,
People that I don't know from like the championship.
I think I just got in Bernard Leno. Is that, or at least a link to him?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it looks like they're going to get him at goalkeeper, and I think he's a really good keeper still. So
Mhm.
that's a good piece of business.
But you're right. I just it's not necessarily our fault. We just don't necessarily know a ton about them. The only thing I knew about Fulham is Liverpool got their best player from last season.
Yeah,
I think they still have
pretty much.
Mitrovic.
Yeah, he
Uh,
scored a ton in the championship last year, but it was kind of the same thing when Fulham got promoted. He scored a bunch,
yeah,
and then we kind of thought he would be a pretty high goal scorer, and then he didn't do anything, and Fulham got relegated. A season later, which tends to be the trend with Fulham recently too. So they got that going against them as well.
yeah. You don't want to necessarily compare Fulham with Norwich, but if they do go down again, they'll they'll get yo-yo status. I guess is what they'll
Yeah,
say.
yeah,
And
that's a good comparison.
one team we haven't mentioned, and I don't like saying this because I've kind of grown a soft spot for him, is I'm worried about Southampton. Um,
Mhm.
it's one of those where Hassan Hoodle has defied the odds so many times. Last year, actually, he had them safe probably by February. But that said, how many times can you rely on James Ward-Prowse to get you a miracle free kick goal? You've
Mhm.
lost Broja, and I don't necessarily
Yeah,
see who
Broja's
they've replaced him with. Um,
gone.
Livermento messed up his ACL. He's not going to be able to go until like maybe the first half of the season. Um, you know, you just start to worry like where the goals necessarily going to come from. And another thing you worry about is for the last like 4 or 5 years, they've actually been up there when it comes to pressing numbers. So that team is probably they've got tired legs with all the kind of running they've done, and because you haven't necessarily brought new legs into the squad, eventually that does show up.
Yeah,
So I fear for them.
yeah.
And so going a little bit overboard, but let's end with your pick for Golden Boot, and I'll send you good wishes for this Friday.
All right. Well, I just picked out I got five players kind of for me that will be competing for the Golden Boot. I think I'm gonna have Son instead of Kane.
Ooh,
Maybe Jesus, surprise Jesus as a focal point of the offense. Holland, and then I think Nunez maybe depending on how much he plays. And I think Salah's going to win the Golden Boot though. I mean, we talked about him earlier how he's starting to develop that right foot too. I mean, it's just going to make him even more dangerous. He's going to have a bunch of assists probably too. So if there is a tiebreaker scenario, he'll probably have the kicker on assists. I don't know. I mean, he's just good. That front three is good. They have some subs that can add to the front three that are going to do really well too. Just a lot of speed. So I think Salah's going to win Golden Boot to add to Liverpool's championship.
oh, there
Other
we go.
trophies maybe, and
Well,
maybe City for the Champions League. We'll do that.
so that would be funny. I would maybe accept that trade, even though City not having that Champions League is actually I do think that that at least hurts their status at least global like at least in the
Hmm.
European game. Um, But I think that's maybe where I kind of thought this last year actually when they went out and got Holland is he would be someone that would maybe help them more for Europe. I think that was
Hmm.
maybe more where they were looking at. Uh,
Yeah.
because you could maybe play Alvarez to be honest as that number 9, and he seems maybe better with his feet a little bit.
Hmm.
Alvarez
True.
has a lot of Aguero. I mean, I don't necessarily want to say that, but at least from the highlights that I've seen, the kind of movement that he has, he's kind of like the same stature. I know Aguero actually loves him. Uh,
Yeah, that's a
so
good
uh,
comparison. Yeah, he probably modeled some of his game after Aguero because they're both South American. So
I mean,
yeah, I love that.
that River Plate versus was it Boca Juniors? Is it
Yeah.
that's like their Clasico or whatever in Argentina? This
Oh
guy
yeah.
scored like 5 goals in that last game.
Have you
So
ever seen like the stadium and how crazy it is during those games? You kind of get a sense of how important that derby is for them. So yeah, I mean he scored a bunch of goals, and we talked about earlier. People might not really know much about him because he was playing in Argentina, but it's still it's a good league. And again, he scored a bunch, and you see him tracking back already for Pep, which will help him, get in Pep's good graces and maybe force him into the starting lineup more.
I guess for my pick on Golden Boot, similar to you, I don't necessarily like picking Salah and picking Liverpool stuff because
Yeah.
I do feel like a jinx. But mostly I'm basing it on, and I guess you could say this for Holland too. It's so big that he's not going to be playing in the World Cup. I
Yeah.
think that's maybe going to affect Kane, um, and maybe some others. So he's going to have a whole month to himself. No Afcon this year,
Mhm.
and maybe the introduction of his right foot. You know, I think there's 8 more goals in him a season. If he
That's a
can
good
do that.
point because he did tend to kind of get tired at the end of last year, but now with that month off and the whole month of November, that could really freshen up his legs for the second half of the season. That's a good point.
And I know another thing too is last season there's this whole like contract stuff happening behind the scenes. I think his agent is a massive pain in the you know what. The fact that he's actually gotten his deal done, Klopp's gotten his extension done. There's no more of that cloud kind of hanging over. So I think that could maybe be one of those intangibles that could help out as
Hmm.
well. But
Yeah.
I'm also pretty big on Holland, to be honest, just because
Hmm.
I think he's not necessarily going to be the guy that gets the first goal. I think he's going to help City just tally on, as they say. Just
Hmm.
anytime City have the lead and teams have to actually go at them, Holland's going to give them a counter threat that they just haven't necessarily had.
Hmm.
It's not to say that Sterling and Jesus didn't have that as well. But Holland's got to finish on it. He scores a goal a game, and I don't
Yeah, and
see
he's huge.
he's he,
Good in the air, header goals, things like that.
he makes clever runs in the box as well. I mean, he
Hmm.
can be clunky, but I don't see how he's not going to get at least 20 plus. Then I got Kane, and I went with Bamford. I think that's kind of a fun story. It'll probably be a joke, especially I mean he had so many injuries last year. Maybe he'll pick up one the first game of the season. So who knows? And the reason why I don't have Darwin is I think Jota is going to play more than people maybe think, and
Hmm.
maybe take some of that away. Um,
Yeah.
Also, there's 5 subs this year, and I
Oh
think it's
yeah.
going to be interesting how both Pep and Klopp kind of handle that. So,
Hmm. Depth is even more important now.
all right, and so we got through it all. Maybe went a little bit over. I'm kind of worried see what the final the final time is. But thanks again, Rex, for joining me again today,
Yeah, it's fun. Excited about the season coming out.
and always glad to talk about Liverpool after a big game. And yeah, I feel like that game was worth spending a good time on it. So
Yeah.
thanks for that, and I'll wish you good luck for Friday because
Thank you.
I
It's gonna
don't
be an interesting game.
I don't want to necessarily bring up bad vibes, but it was about this time last year. Arsenal also started the season away on a Friday, and
Yeah.
didn't uh,
Brentford.
it didn't necessarily go so well. But
Hmm.
to play devil's advocate, uh, they don't they can probably remember what they went through last season. You don't have maybe the Amazon Prime cameras to distract you, so maybe
No,
things will
no
be
Gallagher either for Palace.
maybe
Should
things will
help.
be different. Well, I do like
Mhm.
the signing they got in Decore. We'll see how he works.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
he's good.
and one thing I was telling Jeremy is, people I follow on Twitter that I like trust think Michael Elise is going to, or Michelle Elise is going to explode this
Yeah,
year, and so
you saw glimpses of him last year for sure.
he might be, if he ends with like 15 goals or whatever, he might be a name that everyone starts going after. So we'll see about
Eduard
that.
too, and they have Zaha too. So yeah, I think it will be a tough game, honestly.
Also, it's always fun when Arsenal plays Vieira, because you have those storylines, and you'll definitely see the cameras like probably
Oh yeah.
picture in picture with both. So
Hmm.
I'm looking forward to it. It's good. That's a good
Me
game
too.
to kick off the season,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
we're on the way underway. So I
yeah.
guess we'll try to do
Crazy.
this midweek show once a week if we can, or we'll see. So
Yeah,
maybe try to get, hopefully we'll try to get back with Alex and Jeremy.
yeah.
So
Bring it back to the back four.
yeah, yeah, it's, Van Dyke and Kanate are tired defending on doing all this defending. We need our fullbacks. So
Yeah.
all right. So that said, I guess I'll end and say you guys keep it squatty and
Well, yeah. Stay squatty.
stay squatty. There we go. All right,
Everybody stay squatty out there.
and stop recording.